Welcome to Lighting the Educational Flame, created and produced by educator and author Mark Hoberman, owner and director of Grade Success Tutoring. Mark will be joined by Susan Brender, CEO and host of The Susan Brender Show. The purpose of this program is to offer our listeners a variety of stories dealing with many interesting topics surrounding education. It is our hope that students and parents alike will benefit from the wide range of topics, including study skills, test prep, anti-bullying, sports, music, and more. We hope you enjoy our show, Lighting the Educational Flame.
Hello and welcome to the talk show, Lighting the Educational Flame, brought to you by Grade Success Education. I'm Mark Hoberman and my co-host is Susan Brender. How are you doing today, Susan?
I'm doing just fine, and I'm so happy that we're here to talk a little bit about acting. Our guest is really a fabulous actor, and I want to tell you something, Mark, and I'm curious if you had an experience like this. I was actually desiring of being an actor when I was young, and I went to Berghoff Studios in New York, and I loved every minute of it, Mark. It was the most amazing experience. However, I didn't have parents who encouraged me. And it's probably this situation happens to a lot of people because it's a tough field that they're in. Don't you agree with me?
Very, very demanding. I mean, my acting was, hate to say, I was a munchkin in the play in fifth grade, The Wizard of Oz. And I know the person we have today has been in TV, film, Broadway, but if you don't have the backup, and the support of people, certainly of parents, that's a problem. I know our guest today had, tremendous support from her parents, and that made a tremendous difference.
It's true. Yeah, I recognize that. And I tell you this, I'll tell you, she has been in so many different plays and TV and film. She's an amazing guest, and we're very fortunate.
Absolutely. So let's bring her on and get the party started. Our guest today is actress, playwright, author, singer, and four-time Tony Award nominee, Tovah Feldshuh. Tovah, welcome to Lighting the Educational Flame.
Thank you very much, Mark.
I have to tell you, Tovah, that I grew up in a Jewish family, and I only recently saw a video on YouTube called Where's the Bathroom? I don't know how you embodied my whole life in 2 minutes. And I didn't realize you knew my mother, but you certainly channeled her. So it was just beyond phenomenal. The singing, the comedy, everything. It should be a must see for everybody. But Tovah, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you became so involved in entertainment?
Well, I was born in Manhattan, and my father was a litigator. My mother was a homemaker, and my parents, soon after I was born, built a home in Scarsdale, and that's where I was raised. I used to ride my bike, no hands, down Franklin Hill. Ooh. And play outside. We had 1 acre of land, and in those days, not everybody built swimming pools and stuff. We had nothing. We just had lawn. And I remember asking my mom, I said, Mommy, I want to go outside and play. And she would say, lie down and look at the sky. She'd always say that, lie down and look at the sky. And things like, if you love nature, you'll always be rich. And because if you take pleasure in the natural things of life. And I went to public school, Quaker Ridge, Scarsdale High, Sarah Lawrence College, began graduate work at Columbia, and really applied to Harvard Law School to be a litigator like my father. I really wanted to be with my father because I only applied to one law school. I was definitely on the wait list. I was not accepted. I was on the wait list. And at the same time, with the encouragement of my beloved older brother, Dr. David Feldshuh, I applied for the McKnight Fellowship in Acting to the Tyrone Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and that fellowship I won. And they paid for my master's and for me to become a journeyman, really a spear carrier, but a journeyman with small parts on main stage and understudying the size 7 leading ladies. Everybody who was little in those days, you didn't have your own understudy costume. You had to fit into the leading ladies' costumes. And at that time, Diane Wiest was a wisp of a thing, and Roberta Maxwell is still a wisp of a thing. And I understudied them, and I never went on once. Neither of them ever got sick, and they're both wonderful actresses.
You know, one of the things I remember, Tovah, you told me on a show that I did with you that your father was an amazing man and that he encouraged you actually to be an actress. And I think that is so fabulous because I didn't experience that. I went to Herbert Berghoff Studios. I loved it. I thought it was terrific, but my mother and my father didn't encourage it.
Well, my mother, That's what my book is about. My mother, when I asked to go to Juilliard, my mother said, "You're not going to a trade school."
See?
So my father basically loved his work, and he also loved his life, and he also knew death. He lost his own father when he was 16, and he was in the Army intelligence under Dwight David Eisenhower during the war, and he saw death. So I was his only infant. My brother was born during the war. My mother got pregnant with David weeks before my father was drafted. And on the Saturday after Thanksgiving, which would have just been a few days ago, on the Saturday after Thanksgiving in 1943, my father had been trained at Fort Benning, I think in Georgia, and had come up to Fort Dix and was to meet my mother at the Columbia Army football game at Baker Field at Columbia. And the Red Cross called her that morning as she was packing a hot lunch for her soldier husband who was going to come in from his barracks. And they said, "Are you Mrs. Sidney Feldshuh?" And she said, "Yes, this is the American Red Cross. Private Feldshuh will not be able to attend the game." And that's the last she saw him or heard his voice for 2.5 years. He had been shipped out in the night. Loose lips sink ships, and he had been shipped out in the night. And my brother David would be born January 31st, 1944, without my father. So my father came home from the war, and it wasn't until 46 because he interrogated the German officers to see who was going to go to Nuremberg. He was one of many men who did that, but Eisenhower chose his Jewish boys from Harvard who were fluent in German, which my father was. My grandfather was Austrian, and my grandmother was of German heritage. So she was born in Minneapolis, but she spoke German. And those were the boys who, with a law degree, that actually interacted with the Wehrmacht and with the SS after the war. So he didn't get to 46, and I wasn't born to the early 50s, so I was his only baby. And as a result, he just, I was his footprint that life should go on. And he loved his work. So in both of his children, my brother, of course, was an actor, then he became a director at the Guthrie, then assistant artistic director at 26 of the Guthrie. Then he got a medical degree. I call him Dr. Dave. He's a PhD, MD. So he encouraged both his children to do what they love so that work wasn't work, so that you would choose a life's profession where you weren't checking your watch.
Yeah.
And he really had that gift. And the whole book about my mother was that she was born in an era where that couldn't be ideated by a person, that just gender equality wasn't even.
No, not then.
You know, she was born before women's suffrage. Right. She was born with her mother in corsets. She just lived to 103, and she slowly bloomed like a lily. Her name is Lily. She slowly bloomed as expectations changed of women. So she lived for over 103 years. So the book deals with a century of the women's movement and how it influenced a mother and a daughter. It's about the primal relationship of a mother and daughter, and my ability to find my mother and get close to her. But it took 6 days. It took a very long time.
You know, that leads me to asking you the question, Tovah. Can you tell us about your recurring role as a defense attorney, Danielle Melnick, on Law and Order? You know, that's a very interesting show, and a lot of people watch it. And I'm just interested in knowing whether you know, how did you feel about doing that role and working with all the people that you had on the show?
Who didn't want to do television in New York City, the home of my birth? And it's my home city, the home of where I live. You know, I'm New York City addicted, even though the city is very quiet now, and the core of the city, which is its cultural advantages, are at the moment sleeping except on Zoom. But it's, you know, happiness is a choice, as my mother has told me, and you just got to get up and you just have to commit. You have to commit. It's very easy to be sad at this moment with the deprivation of stimuli that's happening to all of us. So to make a long story short, Law and Order was offered to me as a teeny part. It was written for a boy. The character's name was Daniel Melnick. And it was a joke because there was a big Hollywood producer named Daniel Melnick. So they named the character after him. And somehow or other, I was given the part. I remember it was with David Kolodner at William Morris, and he said, the part isn't big, but you never know. And Michael Moriarty was playing Ben Stone. That's how early it was. And the part was small, and I played a defense attorney, but Sidney Feldshuh was a defense attorney.
There you go.
So I knew what I was. If there was a Suzuki study for Suzuki, you know, that When you study the Suzuki
Right.
instruments of piano or violin, Suzuki says the children should not remember when they didn't play the violin, when they didn't play the piano. I don't remember not being, not listening to my father's incredible stories that he would regale us with about the courtroom. So when I walked into Law and Order, I had a lifetime of experience with that kind of law. It was familiar to me. I used to go watch my father try cases, and we went to night court together, where he would just get up extempore and try to defend somebody as a public defender, and then we'd have Chinese food on Mott Street. So
Yeah.
anyway, I did my work in that first episode, and they said, gee, she's pretty good. She's pretty good at this part. And they had changed the name from Danielle to Danielle Melnick, and I got invited back for 12 more seasons.
Yeah,
Really.
that's interesting. Very interesting, actually. How do you deal with the demands of your acting? I mean, you have so many things that you do. I remember you saying that you were going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
You were going to travel around the world. You were going to do all kinds of things. And yet, you must be able to do all this acting and enjoy every minute of it, I bet.
Well, next year will be my 50th year on the professional stage as an equity actor. I started at the Guthrie at the spring, I think, of 1971. And I would come to Broadway by 1973. I was very, very lucky. Did Yentl when I was very young. So how do I do it? One of the ways we do anything we love is that you do it till it's accurate, excellent, effortless. Effortless is the key. So what do you need? Malcolm Gladwell says you need at least 10,000 hours for mastery. Well, over 50 years, which is, over 2/3 of my life, I've certainly done many more than 10,000 hours. And I always have to say that I pursued roles that would challenge me and made many non-commercial decisions, turning down Three's Company, because I didn't feel that I would ever learn to act if I ever did that. Turning down certain commercial opportunities that I thought really I would have the emotional range from A to B if I did them, and going after the great roles, which is what I was basically trained to do at the Guthrie. Anyway,
Yes.
with Law and Order, I loved that job. When Michael Moriarty left the show, of course, Sam Waterston came on the show, and I got an Emmy nomination from the show.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, I got a call from Richard Swearin, one of the writers. They hired actual lawyers to write for them. And I knew Richard Swearin because I coached girls soccer for the city of New York for the 5 to 10-year-old girls because of Amanda, my daughter. She begged me to do it, and they were understaffed. So I coached for 5 years, and his daughter was on my team. So he became a writer for Law and Order. And of course he was in my corner, and he called and he said, Tovah, are you available in 6 weeks? We want to write you an episode where you will be nominated for an Emmy.
Oh my God.
I said, okay. And I called my agent and I said, whatever we do, we got to keep this space clear. And in 6 weeks, I was called to do this one episode, and doggone it if I didn't get the nomination from it. So I had gotten one from Holocaust, but that was a big miniseries, but this is a big deal. So I loved the job. I was grateful for the job. And when it started to wind down, which it did severely in end, Dick Wolf was very kind. He put me in Chicago Justice to play Daniel Melnick as a judge. Unfortunately,
same person.
Yeah, unfortunately that series didn't make it.
Right.
But he's very loyal, Dick Wolf, and he's very practical. If he likes an actor, and any of us, not just me, if he likes an actor and they do well by him, he likes to pick us again because it saves him time. It saves him time. So,
well, Toby, it's interesting. You mentioned something, and I've certainly seen some of your work. But, my grandfather wrote for the Yiddish Theater. He wrote for the TV show, Little Red Young Show in the 50s and 60s. And I was very steeped in the Judaism and the of that time and the Yiddish theater and whatnot. And my parents were so into Israel and so into Golda. And I have to tell you that when you talk about effortless, I watched some clips. I have to tell you, and I don't have a bad memory, I'd say a minute in, I forgot it was you. I was looking because I knew I was going to interview you, and then you just became that person. How does that come about? Is that the method acting? Is that just owning it? Is that just being able to become that person? Because you channeled her.
Hours, and it's like, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. Hours and hours of rehearsal so that the reservoir of the character fills up in the actor. And when you perform, it's like you make one small hole in that reservoir, one small hole in the dike, and through that come the lines, but they're backed up by a sea of experience. Just like I'm talking to you, and I'm in my 60s now, and I'm talking to you. So I have over 6 decades of experience of life that's reaching out to you. And that's how you do it. Also, you know, if you do things you love, you don't always love it. Memorizing lines as you grow older, oh my word, it becomes, it's not a question of more difficult, it just goes more slowly.
Right.
The computer is filled. And if it's short-term memory that you don't need for survival, it goes chung chung. And this isn't people with plaque. I'm not senile. I'm also a pianist, so I assume I will not get Alzheimer's. My mother didn't, and my mother-in-law didn't, and they were both pianists. And whatever this is, so keep typing on your computer.
Right.
It tends to seem to delay dementia, to be honest with you. But memorizing lines, I have to start early. I now get to any location where I'm shooting 2 to 3 days early. I hire a line tester because I am a very fast oral learner. And I drill those lines until I can do them in my sleep. And once I'm dreaming them, particularly for the big roles like Golda or Becoming Dr. Ruth, I'll probably do this piece on Ruth Westheimer or RBG. Once you start dreaming about them, you're in like Flynn. You're starting to digest them such that you can present them to the audience as if you are composing the piece at the exact moment that you're saying it. So the lines are not the lines, it's as if you're writing the lines for the audience. It's more like a cadenza. The actor knows everything about Golda, so when I walk on stage as an actor, I can know nothing. So if I have the confidence to know nothing, to go to Zen mind, zero mind, then it occurs to me that I say, I'm at the end of my life. I'm old, I'm tired, I'm sick. So it's not rote, it's actually birthed in front of the audience. Every time, and people say, how do you do such a long run? Golda became the longest running one-woman play in the history of Broadway.
Right.
We were on Broadway for 16 months, 8 shows a week. I never missed a performance. And the reason you're able to rebirth it, because the thing that differs from night to night is the audience. And we were in Iraq at the time with this war about the weapons of mass destruction. And I would put the picture of a dead soldier on stage left every night, a different soldier, and I would dedicate the performance to that boy, and always, or that woman, and always remember the quote that when you get out on stage, this is somebody's first play they've ever seen, and this is somebody's last play. That in that audience, this may be the last play somebody sees. So you want to bat it out of the park. You want to do well by them.
Well, when you talk about that and the dedication, even the accents. I mean, I know people have dialect coaches and things of that nature. Look, I just heard you talk to your grandson, and I heard how you spoke as Golda with the accents. Is that just because you have a great ear? Do you get help with that or coaching with that at all?
It depends if I need it. I mean, when I played Katharine Hepburn, I'm just trying to think because I wasn't at all prepared to do this, but I usually do. This is Katharine Hepburn this is Katharine Hepburn from birth to death. When I began my career for Louis B. Mayer out in Hollywood, I wasn't a very good actress, but I had a lot of energy. He said I looked like a horse, but that was upsetting to me. But now I wear these big heels, and when I wanted to ask that little man for things that I needed for my next picture. And as I grew older, you know, I was menstruating, then I stopped menstruating, and we lose the estrogen on our cords, and our pitch starts to drop, you see. And as I got much, much older, I started to inherit the Hepburn tremor, and everybody thought I had Parkinson's, but I did not have Parkinson's. And at 96 years old, I died. So
that brings me from awe to jealousy, because it didn't even sound like an impersonation, because she definitely did have different voices through the years. But if I close my eyes, I would think that's who that was. So that's just unbelievable to be able to channel that. And you've done so much with acting, with playwriting, but I really have to ask you now you're in a different role, or an additional role of author. So tell us about Mother, Daughter, and other roles I've played. It just sounds so interesting and so exciting.
It's the most serendipitous thing. My agent at the time from UTA, Albert Lee, was listening to a podcast I must have done. I don't know if it was for NPR. Whatever it was, he called my managers in Hollywood and said, does Tovah Feldshuh have a literary agent? They said, no. So I think she has a writer's voice. And this man, Albert Lee, came over with Lane Zachary, two wonderful agents. And they said, we think you should write. What would you like to write about? I said, well, I'd love to do a series about my mother and call it Lilyville, the universe of Lily. And I didn't know I would be, be writing a book. And they said, you should write a book. And they made a book deal. In other words, I wrote a proposal that had to do with the primal relationship of a mother and a daughter. And they sold my proposal to a very prominent publishing house, Hachette, and I became a paid writer of Hachette. I had an advance, and then COVID broke out.
Right.
So without this book, besides the fact that I wouldn't have much of an income compared to what I usually am able to earn, it has been a godsend because it's been an artistic obsession to get it right. And the learning curve has been tremendous. You talk about your skills. Well, I'm not as practiced as a writer as I am as a rehearser, a person who memorizes, but I am an expert in one thing. I am an expert in my own life. Nobody can be you, Mark, better than you can be you, or you, Susan. I mean, you're the authentic you. So the most influential parent in my life that I wanted to write about, Sydneyville will come one day too, but was Lily and Kaplan Feldshuh. And when Hachette asked me to write a memoir, I'm sure they were expecting sparkling opening nights and backstage love affairs and long rehearsals and triumphant curtain calls. And there's plenty of that in Lilyville, to be sure, because the name of the book is Lilyville, Mother, Daughter, and Other Roles I've Played. But my longest and most profound role that I've ever played and didn't even have to audition for was as the daughter of Lillian Kaplan Feldshuh. And since the death of my extraordinary mother, who lived till over 103 years old, I felt this urgent need to share our story and our lifelong journey of the decades it took us to understand one another. And I couldn't possibly envision this book, which became a memoir, in any other format than the one I know best, which is a theater piece. So the book is constructed in 3 acts with 16 scenes and 2 intermissions. And between each scene, I put little anecdotes. Like my mother, it says, Lilyism on theater. Tovah, I just saw Miss Saigon. Isn't the point of theater not to have the helicopter? So that is one of her things. She was very, 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 very funny. And if you want a taste of the theater of my memories, the book starts out not with a foreword, but with an overture. It has a program notes. It has a pre-show announcement where they say all these marvelous things about what not to do, turn off your cell phones and all that. And they say the taking of flash pictures, ... is most welcome. So it's great. It has that, and then places everybody. So it starts out with the fact that I get a call from my producer, Barry Weissler. And the phone is ringing. It says Barry Weissler on the caller ID. And I said, my God, Broadway producer Barry Weissler, I'll pick this up. And Barry Weissler answers the phone and he says, Tove, I'm calling because I'd like you to do Pippin for us on Broadway. Oh, sure. Why don't you come down to the Music Box Theater and come play on the trapeze? We'd like to see if trapeze is part of your world. And I'm saying to myself, here I am from Scarsdale, New York. Is trapeze part of my world? Are you nuts? But I bike down to the Music Box Theater. And I enter the stage door, and no sooner do I enter, but I'm hoisted 30 feet up in the air on a trapeze, no net, no harness, no insurance. And Barry Weissler is in the middle of the house, and he shouts up to me, Tovah, 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 are you scared, scared, scared? And I realized, as I'm hanging from the rafters, no, I'm not. And without singing a note or dancing a step, he gave me the role of Berta in the Broadway, the award-winning Tony revival, Pippin, which was thrilling. And my mother comes to every show I do, you see. And she said to me, wait a minute, Tovah. I'm not coming to see you in the Virginia monologues. I can't say that. But 3 women in black dresses in front of music stands talking about their Tschachburgers, forget it. So if you're pretty and there's movement and there's color, give me a ring. So I decide to give her a ring and take her to the matinee of Pippin. There's movement, there's color, and I'm looking damn good in the bustier and the knit stockings, the cross knit stockings. Yeah. And I weigh 112, which is what I weigh now, and what I weighed in 7th grade. And you can see I'm pretty buff from just from swimming and doing push-ups, a few push-ups a day, whatever. So I take her to the matinee of Pippin. And at the end of Act 1, I sing a song called No Time at All, while I'm hanging upside down on the trapeze, doing a full-out trapeze act. So you hang an old bird singing upside down on a trapeze, and it engenders hope in everyone. If you do your job in Pippin as Berta, you will stop the show, and I did the day my mother saw it. So, anyway, I said, Mommy, how did I do? And she said, Tovah, that you should have to earn a living like this and on a trapeze yet. So that was my mother, though. She didn't give an inch. When I played Golda Meir, the Prime Minister of Israel, which was very successful. And I got my 4th Tony nomination from it. She came to me and said, Tovah, I rate your parts by how you look. Dolly Levi was a 10. Golda Meir, 0. Not to give up and still aiming to please, I took her to the Actors Benefit performance of Hair. It had movement, it had color, and it had Will Swinson, the lead, who at the end of Act 1 decided to straddle my mother's armrests out in the audience in his loincloth. So he was over my mother like the Arch of St. Louis. And my mother's in this little St. John's knit, and she's looking up at him and down, and she's under his crotch. She's looking up, she's looking down. And as the house lights come up, I timidly say to my mother, Mommy, how did you like Act 1? She said, like it? I haven't had sex like this since Daddy died. Welcome to Lilyville.
Yes, absolutely.
I have to ask you something. I want to jump in, Mark, because
Sure.
I know that you must have advice for people who want to be actors. There's so many people who would love any part, okay? But it's difficult for them to get jobs. As you know, the competition is like, forget it. So how would you, or what would you say to them to give them the encouragement that they need and the hope that they really want to be able to act?
Well, the biggest thing is you only need one yes. And you have to have the gumption and the fortitude to withstand the no's and keep going. When I was a kid and Sarah Lawrence, I was dying to have all the ingenue leads in summer stock. I remember I sent out 100 pictures and 100 resumes. I got 10 responses. I got 1 offer.
That's all you need, right?
But that's all I needed. And I went to Matunic Theater by the Sea in Matunic, Rhode Island. And Tallulah Bankhead had been there. And Carol Channing and Marlon Brando back in the days of the great summer stock circuits. And I got the ingenue leads. And I didn't give up. When I was at the Guthrie, I held Spears, understudied the leading ladies. And when it was time for me to step into the roles, when those leading ladies left, they gave it to another actress. And give it to me. And it was explained to me that the other actress was the wife of a very prominent and wonderful actor in the company. And they needed politically to keep that guy happy. So I was the sacrificial lamb. Now, when they told me that, I didn't believe it. I said, they don't believe in me. And I better get out of here because there's no hope here. And I felt there was no hope at the Guthrie. And then my fate changed because Cyrano was done. You can see here the fire engine. Cyrano was done as a musical. And for a musical, you needed to learn to sing and dance. For the Guthrie, you needed iambic pentameter. So I was much stronger as a singer and dancer than a person I hadn't yet. I'd studied Shakespeare at Sarah Lawrence, but not in the intense way that would properly train an actor. I wasn't in a conservatory and I didn't go to Juilliard. So to make a long story short, I got cast in Cyrano in small parts. And then the woman who was playing the food seller, Michelle Shea, God bless her soul, dropped out of the production to take a lead on Broadway for the Negro Ensemble Company and open at the Court Theater. I think the play was called Home. And her part of 14 lines in a red dress as a food seller was vacated, and some other director gave it to me. And that part starts the first line of the musical, of the play. So on my Broadway debut at the Palace Theater in May 1973, I had the first lines of the whole production: oranges, pomegranates, lemonade. And darn it, if I didn't get picked up by agents without 14 lines in a red dress. And it started my launch in New York City. And within 18 months, I was on the marquee of the O'Neill Theater for Yentl. Lucky. I had nobody believed in me at the Guthrie except my brother, but nobody. I wasn't ever given a break.
Yeah.
That's an important lesson to our viewers, because if you think about the numbers, what you sent out, you're talking about a 1%. You got a response, but you got 1 job out of 100 resumes sent. That 1%, you know, I know people who, when they hear rejection, they won't try again either ever or for months. And it's just great that you had that passion. It's a tremendous lesson.
No, but you have to have the no. If a no is, the no is really built into any profession. It just comes less often for a teacher with tenure,
Right,
a
exactly.
partner in a law firm. But the no's are lurkers. They're lurkers. Just in our profession, you know, it's not only just the 1 in 100. It's that you have to have the energy to get the 100 pictures done, to send out the resume, to put the postage on, to put the investment in, and to not give up. I do a nightclub act called Aging is Optional, because God, I hope it is, which I created with Jeff Harner as my director and co-creator, and James Bossy, who is my musical director and co-creator. We're a triumvirate. And it was very good. Then the second time, it was really good. By the third time, we kept revamping. It was great. So it takes time. If you watch Betty Davis in her first movie, she's very good. And you get better at it.
Right.
So you just, if you follow your bliss and you want to keep following it, you must not give up. It also means that you may have to support that bliss by waiting on tables. That's something I never had to do, but I was ready to go to Matunic, Rhode Island. I wasn't saying, oh, give me leads on Broadway. What, are you kidding me? I wasn't equipped. You know?
Well, she's an inspiration, isn't she?
She is, and I was just going to say that because we are an educational show, that you've given the viewers an education, because people, especially when it comes to celebrities, they see the glory, but not the story. And they just think you're walking down the street, that's her. She must be in my movie. And it just doesn't work that way.
No.
So it's just,
that way. And also, this is also in Lilyville, and anybody who wants to buy it, just www.tovahfeldshuh.com/Lilyville, and the buttons are there. If you pre-order a hard copy, you can send me your address via the website, and I will send you a custom-made, beautiful Hachette book plate. They're beautiful with, you know, to Mark with every good wish and gratitude.
oh, definitely.
Feldshuh.
That's
So,
a done deal. Absolutely.
yeah.
It's just- So where is it just that website where everyone can not only just pre-order the book, but get to know more about you?
It's a pre-sale now on Target,
Okay.
Barnes and Noble, Amazon, of course, and the independent booksellers. It's completely on pre-sale. We're just about approaching probably 800 sales. A lot of them are pre-buys.
Right.
One person bought 200. One client bought 250 in exchange for a Zoom night with me when the book is released. So that was, of course, my pleasure. So that's what they do. Here are they're very, very pretty book plates. And I would write you in silver pen calligraphy. And it's not just Tovah Feldshuh. I will write you a note. And you put it, and it's, you know, it's COVID free with a sterilized pen. So then you put this book plate, which is adhesive on the back,
in the book.
Your hardcover.
Oh,
That's
brilliant.
great.
Brilliant.
Mark, aren't we fortunate to have her on our show?
We're fortunate, but I want to know, am I going to, when all this is over, be able to see Tovah Feldshuh starring as Lily on Broadway? Because there's no research. Half the work is done. I mean, this could be an easy role for you. You've never had easy roles before.
We would probably fashion a one-woman show, but I play both Tovah and Lily. And then I want to fashion a television series. And you know what, kids, people who are listening, I don't know how to write a television series. I don't know how to write a pilot. I don't know how to do a TV treatment, really. I have to get tutored in it and then have a pitch, because I believe in this property. I mean, it's hysterical. And, you know,
Yeah, that's right.
she's a very, very funny woman.
You know, Tovah, people have huge egos when they make it in show business. You don't. I think that's fantastic. You're not narcissistic. You really want to give of yourself and really act and give people pleasure. That's wonderful.
So that's it. We need to love each other. And also, don't limit yourself with a one concept vote. Look at the whole person. Look at the human being. Children don't do what you say. Children do what you do. You have to watch the actions of people. Many people who can't speak that well, including Moses, who was our greatest leader, who had a speech impediment, but his deeds spoke loudly. I believe that this president-elect's deeds speak loudly, and I believe that the person who inhabited the White House from 216 to 220, his deeds spoke terribly loud. And we were very, very badly parented. That's it.
Tovah, Susan and I can't thank you enough for all
That's
your
right.
comments and joining us today and sharing your beyond vast experiences with our viewers. Just thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Come
thank you.
visit Lilyville. Let me keep you company.
Oh, absolutely. To the viewers, remember to reach out to us on social media. Look for Great Success on Facebook and Twitter. We would love to hear from you. You can also find me, Mark Hoberman, on LinkedIn. Again, thanks to Tovah Feldshuh for being with us today. Susan, as always, thank you. And viewers, don't forget to tune into our next show. This is Mark Hoberman thanking you for watching Lighting the Educational Flame on the Great Success Education channel. And have a great day. Tovah,
Thank you,
so much.
Tovah.
Thank you.
Pleasure, Susan, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Lighting the Educational Flame with Mark Hoberman. To contact Mark, email him at info@gradesuccess.com.